Engaging the community since 1970. This is WIS Awareness.
Good morning and thank you for joining us for Awareness. I'm your host, Megan Norman. This morning on Awareness, what effect would some policies proposed by presidential candidates have on the nation's economy? We take a look at the push to raise the federal minimum wage. Plus, could some South Carolina state employees see their own raise? Also, with the first in the South primaries over, we look ahead to November, but a lot will happen before then, between now and the nomination alone. Will it be the South Carolina primary winners, Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, going head to head? It has been an eventful election cycle so far, to say the least, and several of South Carolina's young leaders have been at the forefront. Joining me now, a few members of Talented 10th, an organization of young professionals who remain active and engaged in the community, both politically and socially. Thank you all for being with us this morning.
Thank you for having us.
So first, I want to get your impression of how the primary season went here in South Carolina. Ashley, I'm going to start with you.
Of course, I'm Team Hillary, so I think it went rather awesome.
Clearly. And Kara?
It was very interesting. I was undecided until the morning of.
And so how did you make up your mind? What went into that decision?
What went into that decision is a lot of the day-to-day action that I've seen within the campaigns within the past 30 days. As you know, we probably had a celebrity in every city of South Carolina for 30 days straight. So that, in addition to just reading and really watching the candidates, and then overall for me, what I wanted to see is that whichever candidate wins, I want to make sure that that candidate is able to continue all of the strides that President Barack Obama has been able to make. So I just want to make sure that vision, all of those, everything that isn't just dropped. So
does that mean you voted for Hillary Clinton?
Yes.
Clearly very happy about it.
Because she is the best candidate to do everything that she mentioned.
And Antoine, you're also a Hillary supporter as well.
I am. I think she's the most qualified. I see primaries like a good football scrimmage. I think it's good for the team. It helps the candidate who will eventually be the nominee help them better prepare. I think the 2008 primary was very good for President Obama. I think Hillary pushed him to be the best candidate, and I believe that's why he's now our 44th president.
And Bree, you were or are a Bernie supporter?
I still am a Bernie supporter.
And why is that?
Well, mainly because his criminal justice platform. I actually spoke with him. We had our own discussion about his criminal justice platform. My whole issue is I'm the mother of a black boy, and with all the police brutality going on across the country, I need the person that would be able to tackle that issue. And to me, it would be Senator Sanders.
And Hamilton, as for you?
Well, I think the primaries, even though we didn't get the result that we wanted, I think it was very interesting and very impactful, because getting able to travel across the state, meet these people and these constituents, we were able to push our platform, to push our message. It was interesting that even though so much attention was pressed upon in South Carolina, a lot of people still weren't familiar with Senator Sanders. So getting out there and interacting with the people, pushing his platform, pushing his message, even though they may not have voted for him or we did not get the result we wanted, they were able to think and were able to assess what was going on and what are some of the things he wants for our country.
Now, when we look at both parties moving forward, we look at the Republican side and we see a lot of tension, a lot of insults, really doesn't seem to be unified. But the Democratic Party looks a little bit different.
Absolutely.
What do you think about the Democratic Party moving forward toward November?
Well, I think the Democratic Party will be the best party that will continue the work we've done, the progress we've made. If you look at the Republican primary, their job is to throw red meat rhetoric to their voters and drive out the angry wing of their party. 90% of the people who voted in the Republican primary here in South Carolina were angry voters. They voted out of anger, and so that's what they do. Their race is all about who can say the most craziest things and bring out the nut jobs in the party. And the Democrats are more about unifying and trying to bring a country together, because at the end of the day, whoever the next president is, they will have a tough job at hand, and that's why I believe that Hillary will be the one that will unite us all.
And Ashley, you were going to say something?
Well, I just think I'm going to refer to Senator Sanders' tweet. Just something as simple as a tweet was, to me, an example of how the Democratic Party is in unity. Basically, he rejected and denounced Trump, and him not being able to go against publicly the Ku Klux Klan, and Secretary Clinton simply retweeted that, and to me that shows that the Democratic Party is unified. We support each other, and at the end of the day, we know that one of us is better as the next president than anyone from the GOP race.
Side, right. Now, during the whole month of February, pretty much all of you weighed in on some sort of national or local media. Really important to get the young perspective out there. First, I want to start by giving our viewers an idea of what the Talented 10th is all about.
The Talented 10th is an organization founded by our mayor, Stephen Benjamin, in 2010. The first event that we hosted was a conference, and it is something that we host annually, and we will be hosting one this year in August. But it's created to provide a platform for African American young professionals, to provide them with leadership opportunities, opportunities for economic development, as well as a level of excellence. So we just strive on creating those opportunities and creating resources and finding extra information just to get out to that population, because we so often lack that resource.
Now, what are some of the issues that really resonated with you? I know both of the candidates talk a lot about HBCUs, they talk about the middle class. What issues really hit home for you?
For me, I am a first-time mother, and this is my first time voting as a mother. And as a mother, I related to Secretary Clinton and the issues that she has about the way our African American children are being treated, being unfairly killed in the streets of the United States. As a woman and a mother, she's concerned about mothers having rights to have their children at home, to be home and paid to be home, to care for their children, at least for those initial 4 months of their children's birth, as well as reproductive rights and equal pay. To me, all of those things are important, especially raising a young girl.
And what about the Black Lives Matter movement?
Well, I think that issue is a very important issue in our community. As an African American male, we all see every day the unfortunate things that happen across the nation. Just in the last year, South Carolina was ground zero for racial tension. You had this state trooper shooting the man at the gas station on Broad River Road. You had the Walter Scott issue, the Emmanuel 9, then the Confederate flag. So race continues to play an intricate part in our nation, unfortunately. So which candidate is going to press those issues and actually speak to it boldly? Because I think it's an issue that America continues to kick the can down the road and never address head on.
Well, and speaking to it boldly is one thing, but then action is something entirely different.
Absolutely.
So do you think that your candidate, Senator Sanders, can actually make good on his promises?
Well, I think you have to look at his track record and what he's done in the past. Senator Sanders is an activist by nature. When he was arrested in Chicago for leading sit-ins at his university, when he marched with Dr. King. So he's not new to this situation. As many of our friends would like to say, he's just new on the scene. But I would like to present the argument that anytime Secretary Clinton goes anywhere, and she has a platform, everybody knows the Clinton brand. So Senator Sanders has to work extra hard to get his message and his platform out there. And he's been doing it for a while. So if you've gone to his rallies, it's the same thing, because he continues to press those issues and he's consistent about it.
Well, really quickly.
I'm good.
Are you sure?
Well, I'll just say this. Hamilton made the point of why Hillary will be the next president, because she's been here and done that, and she has experience. Look, we need a quarterback who can not just get us a first down, Bernie Sanders, but we need someone who can drive the ball down the field, get a touchdown, and win the big game. She's the most qualified to do it. She's ran the right plays when the game was on the line. She's the most qualified. She has talked about bread and butter issues that have direct impact on middle class working families in this country, and the only way we move forward is to grow our middle class.
All right, I love the analogy. Thank you all so much for being here. It's really an inspiration to see how active and engaged you are, and I hope that resonates with our viewers. Thank you again.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
When it comes to the campaign trail, the Democratic presidential candidates have been supportive of raising the federal minimum wage, while the Republicans are adamant against it. Still to come on Awareness, what would happen if the federal minimum wage gets raised to $15? The impact of a wage hike, next.
15! Show me! 15! Show me!
Protesters nationwide say they're looking for opportunities, not handouts, in the fight for a $15 minimum wage. Strikes and protests across the country attempt to send a message to leaders that fast food workers cannot support their families on minimum wage, which is $7.25 in most states. While the presidential Democratic candidates disagree on $15, they do say a federal increase is needed.
Need to move toward a national living wage, $15 an hour over the next few years.
It is way past time to make sure women get equal pay for the work we do. We also have to raise the minimum wage. People who work full-time should not be left mired in poverty.
GOP candidates reject the idea of a minimum wage hike, saying it would create an economic disaster for the country. Most of the candidates say citizens should work harder to improve their financial situations. At a Fox Business Network GOP debate last year, Donald Trump said he could not be sympathetic to the protesters demanding a wage increase.
Taxes too high, wages too high. We're not going to be able to compete against the world. I hate to say it, but we have to leave it the way it is.
In the latest CNN ORC poll, voters seem to be siding with Democrats in a general election. With voters leaning to the left, America could see an increased minimum wage. But what does that mean for economies like here in South Carolina that rely on small businesses? Joining me now to discuss the possible impact of a wage hike, USC professor Dr. Scott Smith. Thank you so much for being with us.
Well, thank you and good morning.
Now, when we talk about a possible increase of the federal minimum wage, what exactly does that mean? What kind of ripple effect would that have if that were to happen?
Well, you know, in consumer behavior, you typically look at any large change such as increasing the minimum wage is going to have both positive and negative effects. And you know, one of the positive effects that they talk about is the fact that now that people are making more, they'll spend more, which will be a boost to the economy. Right. So that's a good way to look at, you know, what that type of change would do. Some of the negative effects that we've seen in the past is that a lot of what we call entry-level job seekers, the employers are less likely to hire people at the higher wages. So what you could actually end up seeing is an increase in unemployment simply because, and we've seen this with some of the states in the Northeast, I believe Washington and Oregon, with the increase in the minimum wage, have actually gone to revamping their operations and putting in self-service kiosks, which reduces the number of what we would call low-skilled or entry-level jobs. So there are some things to be said for it and some things to be said against it. And it's, I always call it the law of unintended consequences, where you pass a law and intending to do something good, right. What it actually happens is it has some negative consequences that maybe people didn't foresee. Right. So that's the one thing that I would encourage everyone to look at it. What are the consequences going to be of this increase? And
what about small businesses specifically? What kind of impact would that have on them?
Well, again, you know, there are some positives and some negatives, but unfortunately, the way I see it is that small businesses get hit the most simply because they work on smaller margins. And again, if you're a business owner and you have a small restaurant or a small retail establishment, your wages are by far the highest percentage of your expenses. And if right. you continue to increase the need for higher wages, then what you do is you, in essence, are going to pass that on to the consumer.
I was going to say, that would be the effect.
Right.
So the consumers would see that, and then they would probably have to hire fewer employees as well.
Well, that's one of the things, is that they could hire fewer employees, or they raise the prices in proportion to the increase. And what that does, and again in the law of unintended consequences, is that has an effect on certain members of the population. And in particular, I think the elderly who are on fixed incomes and people who maybe are living, on annuities or so forth, and have basically budgeted for slight increases or slight inflation, and now you have a shock to the system. And what happens is, let's say, and hypothetically, a business owner has to raise his prices 30% to keep in concert with the wage increases. What in essence you have is people on fixed incomes now have a 30% reduction in purchasing power. So it's like getting smacked with a pay decrease for them, 30%.
Certainly a lot to consider in this ongoing discussion. Thank you so much for being with us this morning.
Well, thank you, and have a wonderful day.
When awareness returns.
I do think that some sentiment that state employees have not been rewarded. They have not whined about it, have not complained about it because of the Great Recession in 2008. But we have the revenue stream now to do it. We can do it without any tax increase. So let's reward and thank them for their service.
Lawmakers are set to start debating the budget very soon. Could a pay raise for state employees be included? We break down what this could mean for employees and the possible economic impact. Stay with us. Last year, some South Carolina state employees received an $800 bonus. But in the last 5 years, state employees have only seen 2 pay increases of 3% and 2%. In January, there was a bipartisan push by some lawmakers to get a 5% raise in this new budget year. The budget debate begins soon, and if approved, the pay raises would kick in on July 1st. Here to talk about the proposal and the possible impact, State Representative Gilda Cobb-Hunter and South Carolina Policy Council President Ashley Landis. Thank you both for being with us.
Thanks for having us.
Let's start with this proposal. What exactly does it entail, and why do you think this increase is needed?
Well, a couple of things. What you're referring to is a proposal that has been made by some in the Senate to give state employees a 5% increase. The budget originates in the House, and there is an effort on the House side to add to the 1% that the Ways and Means Committee has already approved. I will be offering an amendment to give state employees a 3% pay raise. I'm hopeful that that will be successful, and so when the budget goes over to the Senate, there will only be 2% that they will have to add. And we're talking, of course, about, with the 3% pay raise, about $48 million that it will require to fund it.
And why now? Why is this needed?
Well, it's been needed for a very long time, Megan, and now is because we have over $1 billion surplus, and I am just very, very firm in believing that what better time than now when we have a surplus. We are given tax relief, have been giving tax relief, quite frankly, in years when we could not afford it. Our state employees work extremely hard. We have state employees who are working 2 jobs just to make ends meet. I just think very strongly that state employees deserve the raise, and we have the revenue, and we ought to give it to them. If not now, when?
Now, would some employees be exempt? I know with this bonus that happened last year, it was only for those employees making under, I believe, $100,000. Will that be the case this time around?
Well, what my amendment will do will give 3% across the board. There will be no exempt employees. And see, the problem with the $800 bonus we gave last year, not all state employees received it. It also does not go toward your retirement. An $800 bonus, that's nice, but it does nothing to add to the state employees' retirement, which is important when you don't make a lot of money and you think about retiring.
Now, do you think this raise can be maintained?
It can be maintained just as we have done with Act 388. The General Assembly made a commitment to property owners that we were going to give them tax relief, homeowners tax relief. We have made a commitment to maintain that. So I would suggest to you, yes, it can be maintained if the General Assembly decides that state employees are worth it. There is absolutely no reason we can't find the money to maintain that pay raise, just like we've maintained tax relief all of these years when we couldn't afford it.
Now, Ashley, I want to bring you into the conversation. Where do you stand? Where does the Policy Council stand on any kind of pay increase?
Well, first of all, I might take issue just a little bit with Representative Cobb-Hunter's assertion on the tax relief. Not everybody has seen tax relief. The tax relief has been targeted at, of course, certain businesses perhaps and some individuals, but there hasn't been across-the-board tax relief for all South Carolinians in a very long time. And I guess rather than hit at, do state employees deserve a pay raise? Perhaps many of them do, and I wouldn't argue that. I will say this, one of the biggest problems with state government employees and the private sector is the disconnect. I don't think most citizens really know anymore what services are provided to them by state government employees. And I think what would be helpful is for, well, quite frankly, for the General Assembly to follow the law with regard to the state budget, for the House Ways and Means Committee and the Senate Finance Committee to hold those open joint hearings on the governor's budget so that the governor can then gather information from agency directors through that separation of powers that a lot of us think ought to exist, so that the executive branch is aware of who's doing what, which employees need a pay raise. The across-the-board pay raise is a concern to us. When you look at across the board, whether it's budget cuts, as has been the case in the past, you're sort of saying everybody's created equal. And really, state government workers deserve the same treatment as private sector employees.
So do you think maybe merit-based?
Be judged on their merit, absolutely. But let's make sure that taxpayers, that citizens understand the value of the services that are provided. And I don't think that's too much to ask. That's the way it works in the private sector. State government workers, many of them are quite highly paid. Agreed with Ms. Cobb-Hunter, not all. Certainly, we have folks over at the Department of Corrections, for example, and some of the other agencies probably need to be compensated better, and we wouldn't disagree with that. But I would say, let's take a look at who's being paid what. Let's take a look at what services are being provided. Does, for example, everyone in a leadership position in a state agency deserve to have a pay raise? Those are questions that have to be answered. It's got to be targeted, and people have to be judged on their merits.
Well, certainly questions that will be brought up in the debate that's coming up soon. Thank you, ladies, so much for being with us. We appreciate starting this dialogue.
Sure. Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much.
Stay with us. We'll be right back with a final thought. Regardless of where you stand on the political spectrum, your voice always needs to be heard. Decisions that affect you are made every day, so stay engaged in the process and the policies. And we'd love to hear from you. Join our conversation on Facebook. That's also where you can rewatch every show. I'd like to thank all of our guests this morning. Until next time, I'm Megan Norman. This is Awareness.